Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 8th September 2020. The first article for discussion is China's LAC aggression, India's obfuscation. In this article, the author is trying to say that Indian government has shifting goalposts and statements with regard to confrontation at line of actual control, and he tries to analyze the reason behind that and the consequences of the same. You know, there are conflicting statements coming from Prime Minister, External Affairs Minister, and other dignitaries in the government on the standoff between India and China at line of actual control. The major reason for this is domestic calculation of political parties, especially the party in power. So, partisan political interests, if they dwarf the real national interests, then it is going to be dangerous to the country. It is possible in a politically divided country. Present day, it is a reflection of that, what is happening in India. In this scenario, India has to face many challenges. What are they? China is directly getting engaged with Pakistan on Kashmir issue today. Second, India is facing a two and a half front situation. Two fronts, you know, then what is this half front? That is the situation in Kashmir. The author is trying to call the situation, burning situation in Kashmir, as another front. China, Pakistan, and situation in Kashmir. These are the three fronts. Next, China's aggressive land grab also comes from the capacity deficit on front of India. If you observe, Army, Navy, and Air Force, India appears to be equivalent to face China. But on cyber and space fronts, China appears to be much advanced. The industrial establishment of China is much stronger, and many countries are dependent on China economically. On the other side, Chinese calculation goes like this. Europe, USA, and Quad nations, they have very little chance to come in support of India. Why? They are stuck in their own domestic issues. Above all, there is one thing which clearly reflects the divisive nature of Indian society today. In India, allied dissonance is clearly visible on this issue. Normally, strategic thinkers of a country, all they come close together in this grave situation. But today, that is not happening. Why is this? That clearly reflects how divisive India has become, even on important grave national issues. That is what author points out here. The next article is related to Nagaland and Naga conflict, that is, the search for an end to the complex Naga conflict. Is Naga issue a political issue or a law and order issue? I would like to see it as a political issue to be solved at the political level. Let us know a brief background of the Naga problem. Nagas declared their independence a day before India's independence and wanted to have a separate sovereign nation for themselves. In this context, Naga National Council headed by Angami Fizo spearheaded this movement. Government of India gave a concession and autonomy to form by forming a Naga state in 1963, present in Nagaland. Later in 1975, India came down heavily on the Naga separatists and finally it led to Shillong Accord. In this, Naga National Council agreed to surrender arms, demand for separate nation, and also agreed to accept the Indian constitution. So dissatisfied people formed the NSCN and it has broken into multiple factions. Today NSCN, IM, Kaplong, etc. all these are multiple factions. Here a ceasefire agreement was signed in 1997 between government of India and these Naga separatists. These Naga separatists were also getting support from China then. In this scenario, Nagas in Nagaland developed some spheres of influence. The areas where they kept under their control, where government is unable to reach. In these spheres of influence, they are running parallel governments and collecting taxes. In a normal parlance, we call them as extortions. Second is, a framework agreement was signed when Mr. Ravi was the interlocutor. You know, Ravi was former IB official. Before that, former Home Secretary Padmanabhaya was the interlocutor. In this, shared sovereignty was the thing which is used. Later, Mr. Ravi sent to Nagaland as the governor, and Ravi recently made certain statements which are the areas of concern and conflict between government of India and the Naga separatist groups. What Ravi stated is all the government employees shall submit a declaration saying that none of their relatives are are associated with underground activities or groups. Second, extortion, lack of law and order, especially this collection of taxes by these Naga separatists, was criticized by governor. In this case, NSC and IM started demanding the governor has to be changed and Mr. Ravi can be no more an interlocutor. Remember carefully, initially the framework agreement was signed with NSC and IM. Later, as other political groups also have demanded their participation, Naga national political groups under this banner, other political organizations are also engaged. Today, other than NSC and IM, other political groups want Mr. Ravi to be continued for the reason that if he is removed, again it goes to the first post or it goes to the back to the square one. They want the process to be continued, but NSC and IM wants Ravi to be removed. In this context, what the author is trying to say is there has to be give and take from both the sides, then only a compromise can come up. So for a complex issues like this, the best way forward is to compromise and find a golden mean. That is what author is saying. Deal in danger. This is about Brexit. Here Mr. Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of UK, is stating that UK is ready for no deal Brexit. It means that if no deal is been brokered with the European Union, then also they are ready for an exit by October 15th. So like these deadlines are going to complicate the situation further. So UK has to bear the brunt over here. How? You know, Northern Ireland is part of UK and Republic Ireland is separate from UK. So between Republic Ireland and Northern Ireland, through Good Friday Agreement, we have an open border. So people and goods can move freely between this. Now Republic of Ireland is part of European Union, but Northern Ireland will not be the part of it. Obviously, if a hard border, a strong border comes between Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, it will become very divisive. And it will destabilize the region and the peace which is prevailing over there. Economically also, UK will end up paying huge money to European Union. In this context, seeing the economic losses and also the peace in Northern Ireland, UK has to go with lot of patience. That is what this article is suggesting. Test by choice. This article talks about new ICMR guidelines which allow for testing on one's own decision, testing by demand. It means I can pay money and I can get tested for COVID-19. What the article says is, this will divert the existing testing resources and infrastructure away from the needy. Let us take a poor man got infected and the priority shall be to trace out his surroundings and the people whom he came in contact with and they have to be tested. As the test kits will be diverted for the people who are affordable to pay, obviously this exercise is expected to be affected. That's why India has to ensure testing the people in need on a priority basis. Second, in India, most of the tests which are coming are rapid antigen tests. These rapid antigen tests are not accurate. The accurate tests are RT-PCR. It has got high specificity and sensitivity. So in this case, Government of India shall encourage for RT-PCR rather than rapid antigen tests. The next is empower the youth first. You know, National Youth Policy was passed in 2014. What is the definition of youth in India? It is the person between age group 15 to 29 years. What is the population? They are 27.5% of total population. And in our labor force, their participation rate is 38.3%. They are the wealth of this nation. They can create wealth for this nation. But unemployment among them is 18%. In this case, the article suggests few things. India has to develop an index which is called Youth Development Index to understand the problems and prepare a roadmap with various priorities for the skilling employment of this youth. Second, European Union has a program called Youth Guarantee Program, which ensures that certain part of the budget have to be definitely spent on the youth. India also has to launch a similar India Youth Guarantee Program, which shall have a youth component plan in budget, where that particular budget has to be spent on young and the people who can make the future for this country. Skill upgradation, apprenticeship, entrepreneurship, and then employment, all these have to be the priority areas for the youth. Next is reviving the economy. Indian economy saw the highest fall in the first quarter of this year compared to all the other countries in the world. If you take US, Italy, which are got worst affected because of this COVID-19, their fall is less than 12%. But in the case of India, it is close to 24%. In this context, what India has to do and what is the situation. So gross capital formation is falling even before India entered into COVID-19 phase. Urban consumer demand, demand for fast moving consumer goods, everything is falling. The worst part is supply chain in India is also not taken care of well. If you see the core sectors, they are also showing a negative growth. What is the way forward in this situation? Urban economy has to get running. So we have to provide money in the urban hands. How shall we do that? Urban employment guarantee scheme can be helpful. Now, rural growth is majorly being driven by monsoon and also MG Narega. So we have to make the rural growth more sustainable. So we have to develop an entrepreneurship in the rural areas. And supply side changes are required. Core sectors have to be revived. That's why India can boost infrastructure on a large scale. Our infrastructure investment can be encouraged in India. Next, let us see the opinions of Raghuram Rajan over here. India need to offer relief measures immediately. If you offer tomorrow, then it is self-defeating and will be useless. Do the needful when the patient is sick, not when the patient recovered. Next is, India can borrow more money. What India has to do is to guarantee the repayments. How can it do? By providing a proper legal structure surrounding it. What he suggests is, we can establish a fiscal council which can oversee independently this matter of payments in the long run, which can also instill confidence in the people who are buying the bonds from India. Next is direct cash transfers, government and public sector spending. These all can be helpful in boosting the economy. Whatever the governments have to pay to the private people and private sector, these have to be immediately dispersed so that that money can enter into the economy. That's what Raghuram Rajan is saying. The next is Tibetan soldiers' funeral seen as Delhi's signal to Beijing. Now, Delhi wants to say to Beijing that if you are not sensitive to us, we will not be overly sensitive to you. You know, the soft spot of Beijing is Tibet. So, Tibetans, when they moved to India along with Mr. Dalai Lama, a special force was created which was called Establishment 22. Today it is called as Special Frontier Force. A commander of the Special Frontier Force, Mr. Tenzin, has died 2 days back. Mr. Ram Madhav and also MP from Ladakh have attended his funeral, and it is widely publicized. Is this a conscious action from the government? Probably yes. It is to send a message to China that we know your soft spot. That is the message we want to send. And then Mr. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister, says LAC situation is very serious. What he is trying to say is he calls for deep conversations between political leaders from both India and Chinese part that can ease the situation. Change our ways swiftly and globally, David Attenborough. So, Mr. David Attenborough is a journalist. He is known for his series The Living Planet. He is also called as the human voice of the nature. He won the Indira Gandhi Peace Prize for 2019. An all-powerful president and a rubber stamp parliament. Already we have discussed 19th and 13th Constitutional Amendment Act in Sri Lanka. What is 19th Constitutional Amendment Act? It wanted to weaken the executive presidency and strengthen the parliament and independent constitutional institutions. So they have kept the maximum limit for the president to be 2 terms and also ensured the security of tenure for the parliament for 4.5 years for minimum. It cannot be dissolved before 4.5 years. Created independent commissions which can ensure checks and balances. During the elections, Rajapaksa stated that they are going to do away with 19th Constitutional Amendment Act. For this, they are passing the 20th Constitutional Amendment Act. So, it intends to remove the checks and balances created by 19th Constitutional Amendment Act and can make the executive presidency much stronger. So, it is going to move away from the parliamentary structure which was been created before. That is what this article is stating. Government intervention in educational policy should be minimal, Prime Minister. You know, new national education policy was announced, which has brought drastic changes with regard to the education. And teaching in mother tongue in the early years is a major thing in this particular policy. Here, Prime Minister Modi, while addressing the vice chancellors of various universities and governors, states that the education policy shall be owned for everyone, parents, students, teachers, everyone. So, education policy shall belong to the nation, not just to the government. Making everyone participants, every stakeholder participant will achieve this particular thing. In this case, President Kovind, he has made certain important observations. India has to invest in R&D. So as of now, India's investment in research, development and innovation is 0.7% of GDP. If you go to US, it is 2.8%, Korea around 4.2% and Israel it is around 4.3%. You can build human capabilities by investing in human resources towards research. Second, India has to increase its expenditure on public education to 6% of GDP. It is the goal, and India has to strive to achieve it as soon as possible. The last article for discussion is Hypersonic Cruise Missile Vehicle test puts India in allied club. In this case, DRDO tested hypersonic missile with a scramjet engine. What is this scramjet engine? It is much powerful engine than ramjet. The ramjet engine can power up to 3 Mach speed, that is 3 times the speed of the sound. The scramjet engine can take air much faster at supersonic speed and can release the air at hypersonic speed. In this context, scramjet engine can support the speed up to 6 Mach, that is the 6 times the speed of sound. So this makes India to join into an elite club of having this hypersonic technology.